Hello, everybody, and welcome to Profiles in Risk. And this is your host, Tony Cañas. I know that you haven't seen me in, I don't know, maybe a year, but I promised Nick that I would do more recordings this year. And thank you, first of all, for Margaret Reese Millicent. I hope that's how you pronounce her last name. I've actually never known. I call her Margaret, just MRM, so we call her internally at Jacobson. Is it Reese?
It's actually Ressi, but I love MRM, Tony. So if you want to just say MRM, it works for me.
Perfect. So first of all, I want to thank Margaret for, she's like Madonna, she doesn't need the last name. Margaret, for the idea of this podcast and for hand choosing the participants. And I want to thank everybody else. We have Amy Waninger, as in you'll be wanting her to speak again. Deidre Wright and Josh. Actually, I don't know how to pronounce your last name either. Lamangan?
That's fine. No one ever does. It's pronounced Lamangan. So that was actually really good.
Lamangan. Yeah, that was good. That was harder than Margaret's. So thank you. Thanks everybody for joining. We have an hour, and first thing I'll do is basically let each of you introduce yourselves. I'll kind of go in the order that you're showing up in my screen. I don't know in which order you'll show up in the recording. But let's go ahead and go counterclockwise. Amy, go ahead and give us a quick recap on who you are.
Sure. My name's Amy Waninger, and I'm the CEO of Lead at Any Level. I am working diligently to improve diversity and inclusive leadership throughout the insurance ecosystem and beyond. I'm the author of a few books, including Network Beyond Bias. And I've known Tony for what seems like forever, but really has only been about 3 or 4 years. And I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Deidre, you're next.
Hi, I'm Deidre. I'm the founder of Strategic Stories. I help people and brands make a name for themselves as a brand that clients love. Prior to this, I worked in the insurance industry as an award-winning diversity inclusion marketer, also worked as a broker, so I know this world really well. But ultimately, I'm trying to disrupt the branding and executive coaching industry to have people really lead companies as brands, because we all know that at the core of every brand are people telling stories to affect change.
Josh.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. So my name is Josh Lamangan. I'm the Director of Membership with RIMS, the Risk and Insurance Management Society. We have over 10,000 members in more than 60 countries. I have more than 13 years of nonprofit association experience, mobilizing people, providing valuable resources. At RIMS, we have a massive network for our members, as I mentioned, around the globe. And we do a lot with students, including scholarship programs that bring the next generation to our conferences, including our annual conference, that's taking place in Denver this May.
Perfect. And finally, Margaret.
Thank you, Tony. So happy to be here with you and my friends and my new friend, Josh. So it's a pleasure. Thank you, Tony, for making this happen. So I am a D&I champion. I am a connector at large in the insurance industry. Some people call me managing partner at the Jacobson Group, but in any case, call me. I'm really excited to be here today to have this conversation and to continue to put the spotlight on what's near and dear to all of our hearts on this podcast today.
Thank you, everybody, for introducing yourself. And I should have said the specific topic. I'll add it in editing. But today, basically, we are discussing insurance D&I, and especially what's next, right? That's the big question. How do we get there? What is coming next, and how do we get there? So I think that I'm going to start with Amy, since Amy is working in this world for the last little while and is very passionate about it. Amy, what's working out there in D&I with an insurance? What in your perspective?
Well, I think we've been very successful at the executive level in making the business case for diversity and inclusion. I think most executives understand that there's a talent crisis in this industry, that they are facing large numbers of departures due to retirements, that we are competing in a talent market that we've never had before, in terms of competition and just the sheer number of possibilities for people as they're entering the workforce. is greater than it's ever been, but also that the demographics have changed in the workforce, and that if we don't make our companies ready for a changing workforce and a changing market demographic shift, then our companies are not going to stay relevant long term. So I think that's worked really well. I think where we've been missing the mark, though, is below the executive level. And what I mean by that is, while executives are very interested in, they live in tomorrow, right? They live in what's next. Most folks in a company are very concerned about their own careers, not about the 10-year talent horizon for the organization at large. And so I think what we can be doing better, and where I'm trying to have an impact, is around appealing to, for lack of a better way to put it, the selfish career needs of individuals, and why engaging in diversity and inclusion is good for their careers, not just for their companies.
And this is where your first book really plugs in, right? Is helping regular people use proper DNA engagement, I want to say, to grow their numbers and grow their careers.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't need our manager's permission to invite somebody out for coffee or to read a book by an author that doesn't look like us. We don't need our manager's permission to listen to a podcast on the way to work that gives us a different perspective. All of these things are completely within our control. And too many of us wait for permission, or wait to be asked, or wait to be invited to get on board with this. And most of the time we don't, because we don't see what's in it for us. And the fact is that the more diverse your network, which of course is my passion, the more diverse your network, the better able you are to innovate, the better able you are to connect with your customers, the more inclusive a leader you will be. And all of those things make us better employees, better people, for that matter. And certainly, affects the trajectory of our careers.
Margaret and Deidre, a couple of things that Amy said, I think, fit right into your areas. So let's start with Margaret. Amy said we're doing a good job helping the executives understand the importance of diversity. Your day job basically is placing executives within insurance. What are you seeing out there? Are they buying in? What do you think?
Yeah. So, Tony, I always take a courageously positive approach, so I'm going to start there. I think they are buying in. I think that I completely agree with Amy that the business case has been heard. That doesn't mean that we can stop telling the story, to Deidre's point, of the importance and the significance and the why of diversity and inclusion. And I think we're doing well. I'm going to go out there and say, I think we're doing well. Can we do better? Absolutely. So what we have to do is say, where are we at in the journey? And that's really why I thought it would be great to get us all together, because I think we are at a critical inflection point on that journey. If we think about where we've been, how far we've come, and we have come a long way, but being brutally honest, putting my brutally honest Margaret hat on, I have to say we can do better. And now we have to get to solutions and to those opportunities to say, this is how I did it, and this is why I did it, how I did it, why I did it. And coming together again to a point where we're doing something right. We're using the collective voice, and we're together in that voice, in that moment, telling the story, being able to listen and amplify. That's where I think we've really done well. And I'll turn it to Deidre, because she and I have been on the journey together. And thanks to women like your mom, Deidre, to Soraya, who I adore, we're here today, carrying that message and that fire with us.
Right. Thank you, Margaret. And for those who now know, I'm a second generation insurance professional, so I care about the industry. I've been in the industry. And in my previous role as a director of engagement and marketing for the Business Insurance Diversity Inclusion Institute, I will say that people, like Margaret says, they know about diversity and inclusion and its value. I think the disconnect or the opportunity area is bridging the gaps between HR and the business and initiatives in the people. And I say that because HR, this is their world, they know this, but we have to make it a business imperative, meaning tying it to business outcomes, business strategies, accountability, performance goals, performance pay. And I think that's the area that we can work on because, for example, you might have it where it's like, oh, we care about diversity inclusion, but if we're doing all marketing events that are happy hours, how is that inclusive to people who don't drink? Are there religions against it? And so I say that because they're simple things, but it's not connecting the dots. And between the business and the people is when I was doing diversity surveys for 2 years, we had a poll over 800 insurance professionals asking what's the biggest challenge to diversity and inclusion. For 2 years in a row, they said they couldn't find minorities with a skill set. And while those people might think it's true, I don't think so. I think you're not recognizing leaders for who they are. And that's where I'm like, the disconnect is why don't you look internally and invest in those people? And those will be your leaders for tomorrow in the C-suite. But what happens is there's no investment in these underrepresented professionals. They're not seeing the return on investment for their time, so they leave the industry or leave the company. So I think we are aware of it. There's policies, but we have to connect the dots and make sure it's holistic within companies.
If you weren't 3 time zones away, I'd be giving you a hug right now. That was fantastic, especially the investing in your own people and Josh, you come from the other side of the coin. We are all insurance. You're on the risk management side, and you get to see the risk management side from the RIMS perspective, which is the biggest organization within the risk management world. How is the risk management side doing better? What can we learn? Or on the other hand, what is it that you guys need to learn from what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree very much with Amy, Margaret, and Deidre have pointed out. It is definitely a business imperative, and I think companies recognize that and how important diversity, inclusion, and equity are how important they are to the sustainability of their company, and also seeking out the next generation of talent. I think it applies to the risk management industry as much as it applies to the insurance industry and across all types of industries. I think companies are recognizing the need for D&I, and to add on to what Deidre mentioned regarding the report. RIMS produced a Risk Talent 2025 report last year with Chubb, The Hartford, and Willis Towers Watson. And we had about 1,200 people that they surveyed, and everybody, pretty much 95% plus, said that they're agreed on the importance of cultural and professional diversity now and also 5 years from now. So they think this is a very important topic. But interestingly, only 16% of those 1,200 surveyed said that there'll be sufficient graduates to meet market demands by 2025. So that's a really scary number. And so Deidre raised a really good point in terms of seeking talent. Where are you looking? Are you looking, in different places than you normally look? And that goes to holding leadership accountable. You see a lot of top leadership supporting D&I, and just we want to make sure that they're obviously doing things to make sure that they're looking in places maybe that they haven't before. To make sure that 16% moves up to hopefully they believe that, that they're going to find new talent. So maybe that can move up to 50% plus that they believe there'll be sufficient graduates to meet market demands by 2025. So I think, again, I agree very much with Margaret, Amy, and Deidre said, and I think that on the risk management side, there's a lot of things moving forward, and there's a lot of things that RIMS is doing to make sure that we are being part of that movement. And Margaret, I'm going to also do a shout out to Deidre's mom as well, Soraya Wright, because she's on the RIMS D&I Advisory Council, and I'm very grateful to her as well. So I just have to do a shout out to Soraya as well for all of her support and the work that she does for our council.
Good. Josh, I'm going to jump in and say thank you, for amplifying here. It's really true. I mean, what you're talking about, this does not happen by accident. We have to be intentional every step of the way. We have to reimagine. We have to disrupt ourselves every step of the way. And there's a lot of solution, I think, in that we can really talk about. But I think it does start, with each one of us, who are here on this podcast today, those people listening, and then how do we learn from each other? How do we amplify? How do we create those moments that Amy talks about, that are, so it just feels normal. It feels normal to have these conversations. It feels important and normal that we can just do this and make it a part of who we are and who we aspire to be.
One thing I'd like to add to this too, and Deidre, I love what you said about investing in the people you have. I talk to a lot of people in the industry about the, there's sort of a hesitancy to train and to retrain people for new roles. And, we know the industry is changing. And instead of training people into these new roles, we go outside our organization and try to bring new people in. There aren't as many new people out there, right? And so one of the things that I want to challenge, if you're a business leader listening to this right now, to be very, I guess a little harsh, right? Kind of like, let's really talk about this, is what makes you think you deserve new talent if you're not taking care of the talent you have? Because I will tell you, people talk, right? And if you have, especially people in tight-knit communities, so if you have folks in your organization and you're not investing in them, their friends and family hear that you're not investing in them. And that's not going to create 5 new applicants for that new role you just opened up. And so we need to be very, very intentional about how we treat the employees that we have, so they are the brand ambassadors, not just for our products, but for our organizations as an employer brand.
Look, go ahead, Deidre.
I was going to add on to that, and I think that's so crucial what you said, employer brand, which is why I care about branding. It seems artificial. No, brands matter. That is why customers are coming to you. That's why people want to work for you. They see that logo, they see that saying, they're like, I want it. And it's really crucial that we think about, when you think about why do you deserve to get new talent, why do you deserve to just, stay relevant? Because just because you were great back then doesn't mean you're relevant to now for your current customers who are different and dynamic and changing. And I think companies need to think about what their brand really is, at the core, what it is, and how do they keep moving it forward so they're relevant to now. Talk about InsurTech disrupting. Something can't disrupt an industry that's not always working on itself. You can't disrupt something that's going to be there forever. So instead of thinking that like we have enemies, think about what can I do to better connect with customers, with my employees. My goal is I want to have so many thought leaders on stage speaking about risk management, sophisticated things like that. So I have a whole Rolodex and do a relay race with Margaret. Like, here's all these leaders, find them jobs. I know you have opportunities, because the thing is, there's so many dynamic people working for companies, but they're not either given the tools to be on social media promoting their company. I'm like, there's so many marketing materials that I saw when I was a broker, but no one trained me on how to use that effectively on social media to retain or recruit clients. That is wasted money to me and wasted resources of your people being brand ambassadors. So diversity inclusion doesn't have to be a policy or compliance. It's more of how do you utilize the resources you already have, brands, people, data sources. HR systems have data sources, revenue things, supplier, there's data sources. How do you use what you already have to create change versus think of it's an extra cost? No, it's just using what you have, remixing it, and staying relevant.
Oh, and in my 8 or 9 year career in the carrier side, it was more than not having good access to the resources to be a brand ambassador. It was more like being told not to, right? I mean, on the carrier side, we seem to be so afraid of letting regular people, non-VPs who haven't had the public communication training to be out there speaking for even if it's a very positive thing. Amy, I really loved the why do you deserve new people if you're not that was a mic drop type of moment. I absolutely love that. And Margaret, you and I live in the same world of search and staffing within insurance. We're on different sides of the company. We're both with Jacobs, and I'm wondering if on your side, are you seeing candidates say no to companies or question going to companies because the company's perceived as not investing in its people?
Yes, absolutely yes. I think that candidates today, and Amy did a perfect lead-in for this, it's a war for talent. It's a bloody war for talent. Unemployment is at record lows nationally and in insurance. So the candidate is king and queen, and they call the shots. That's a very different market than a lot of employers are used to. In fact, I will say it's really the first time in my 30-plus year career that I've seen a candidate market this intense. So there's a real opportunity for a major shift, and let's call it a shift for the good, that candidates are going to be able to talk about. Let's evaluate you, Mr. or Ms. Employer, your brand, your mission. What do you stand for? How do I feel when I put my name next to yours? I had an executive level female today say to me, I love the role you were talking about, Margaret, but I really need to make sure that organization shares my values. What are their perspectives on inclusion and belonging? And what am I walking into? What can I expect? And can I trust you, Margaret, that you are putting me literally in a place where I can thrive, I can grow, I can succeed, I can feel true to myself? Those are the real conversations that we're having. And I think that's across the board. I don't think it matters that this person happens to be a senior level individual right now. That could be occurring at the entry level. It could be occurring at the mid-level and everything in between. It's a brave new time, and it's time, that we're having these kind of conversations. I actually love it.
Tony, I like to add on to that because I know people ask me about diversity inclusion all the time. Like, Deidre, you worked with all these, with over 25 plus companies on their diversity inclusion strategies. What's going on? Who's the best? What's happening? And at the core of it, diversity inclusion is a value. Either you believe in it or not. And I think it's the same, and I put the analogy out there. It's like New Year's, people are like, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to work out. Now you have those New Year's, new me people, and you have fitness enthusiasts. They don't care if it's summer, spring, winter, turkey trot. They're going to work out because that's their value. They don't need a prompt. While there's people like, it's new year, new me. They get excited. They don't see quick results. And what happens? They crash, they stop. And I see companies doing that with diversity inclusion. They see dollar signs, they see opportunities, but they don't realize it's actually a science, and it takes work and strategy and people with those skills. And you know what happens? Employees see it, prospective employees see this, and that's the thing, is it has to be really a core value and an investment that you're going to not be able to see results for a while. But you have to be true to your value, and the good companies, it's been a value from this day one. So it's not necessarily a trend to them. So I think that's the imperative thing is this your value and is it aligned with mine?
Deidre, that's a really good point, because you see a lot of companies really posting about how proud they are of their organization if they're noted or scored well for certain indexes, like the Human Rights Campaign Corporate Equality Index. And that rates, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer equality. Bloomberg Gender Equality Index reviews how committed companies are supporting gender equality through policy development and transparency. So I find that kind of fascinating these days where, you know, on LinkedIn, I didn't see that a few years ago. Just, you know, all these across the board, not just a D&I practitioner at a company, I'm seeing employees post how proud they are of their company effort and what they're doing for equality in general. So it's very interesting culturally seeing that across, you know, at all different levels, at the senior level, at mid-level, and you're seeing a lot of particularly these younger kids super excited. And I read that the Census Bureau forecasted that over half of kids in America will belong to a minority race or ethnic group by this year, 2020. So it's interesting that, you know, for those people who are, you know, not in their early 20s or even mid 20s, who diversity is not the norm. And obviously in the insurance industry, you know, that there has to be more diversity, and the risk management industry as well. But for these younger kids, diversity is the norm. They're used to seeing other people that don't look like them, act like them. So it's going to be interesting seeing them enter in the industry, and maybe even, you know, the company talking about things that seem foreign to them about grouping them together into specific, into one bucket when all they've known is just being surrounded by different people, you know, their whole entire life. So that's going to be an interesting thing moving forward, I think.
You know, I was talking to Lawanda Hall, El Michelle, and we were talking about the changes in the demographics of young people coming up. And I see, you know, I really want to see a shift in this industry demographically, but how do we make a place that attracts people? How do we change our environment into one that's natural for these folks? And she said something that just really just got me. She said, we don't have to, they're going to come in and change it for us. And I got chills.
But you have to be open to those changes. Otherwise, you'll have a revolving door of people who want to make change.
Or you'll have new competition.
And I've got to brag a little bit on this one. I just celebrated my 2-year anniversary at Jacobson. Nothing compared to Margaret's. Can I share the exact number, Margaret, which we just celebrated?
Absolutely, Tony. Yeah. Share the number.
Nothing compared to Margaret's 35-year anniversary, which was also this month. But
Tony, for you, 2 years is a long time.
For me, and I'm putting it here in recording. I told Greg, our CEO, during our meeting last week that my goal is still to be the next Margaret, and that had never happened before. And I think a big part of it is, and this is where I was going to the bragging about the organization. We are an incredibly diverse organization. I didn't write the exact numbers, but something like 77% women. So something like 65% women leaders, something like 70% millennial or younger, some millennials and Gen Zers, and our leadership reflects the rest of the organization. Because what I see in a lot of insurance is 55% women, 60% women, but only 20% of the leadership, right? At Jacobson, it is very much reflected. So I love that, and you can see it in our office, the office, and I'm only in once a month, but the office is a very friendly, very dynamic, very young place. And then I visit clients, which are PNC carriers, and I see kind of the exact opposite, the tall cubicles. So I think that you need to make the investment in the physical place. And the other big change I've seen in the 2 years I've been around is we become so much more friendly to remote workers. And that's another piece so anyway, that's what I'm seeing that is working well at Jacobson. What are you guys seeing either in your own organization or in other organizations that you work with? What is working out there?
I will just say everyone's on a different journey. I think it has to be specific to what your business strategy is. Like, this is a customized thing. Now there's best practices. You can take and adopt something, make your own. But I think at the core, these are the core things companies need. They need to know what their business strategy is, create and use diversity inclusion as a tool to act on that or hit against that goal. And then what you do is you document a strategy, you utilize existing data, whatever points you have, whether it's your HR system on, your talent, their progression, business goals, the supplier diversity. Use whatever data you have to at least have some kind of way to measure change and progress. So you have your business, your strategy, you have your outline for that. And then figure out what the quick win is. Is it, hey, we know money is a good thing. Like, let's vet and get diverse suppliers and try to measure against that goal. So have some kind of quick win to engage and get allies on board within your company, and then really measure that and revise it. And then I would say tie it to some accountability aspect, whether it's performance bonuses or whatever. I know a company had it where part of their bonus was dependent on what are you doing to hit against our diversity inclusion goals. And I think it was like a percentage of bonus, like maybe 10% out of it or 50. It was some number. So people like, if I want to get my bonus fully, I know I have to hit against this. So that's like the best kind of framework. Now, people like companies, I like what they're doing. Gallagher has a really good supplier diversity program. They leverage what they're doing, and they don't, to be honest, they don't like finesse money out of their diverse vendors. A lot of companies say they have diverse supplier diversity programs, but they barely pay those minorities commission. Those women, those minorities, they get like basically nothing out of it. But I know Gallagher actually rewards them, so I appreciate that. I know when it comes to investment in their people, Crawford does a good job on that with their internship and then continue education and stuff they do for their employees and keep them ready to progress within the company. They have a long tenure of their employees at all, and they have very diverse staff, which is good. And also I say NFP because they invest in their different demographics. I know for their women's group, they give them X amount of time of like executive coaching or some kind of thing like that to actually get them to C-level position. So it's actually putting their money where their mouth is. But all those are tied to business goals, whether it's with money and supplier diversity, with tenure of their employees, or for leadership pipeline. So I think that's what people do really well. And there's some companies, for examples.
I'll jump in and say, DJ, you're absolutely right on this. I mean, companies that make it a part of their DNA, not a check the box. Check the box doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work. Let's not check the box. Let's act and let's do and let's get to solutions. And the data is going to help us. So I have to do a quick shameless plug. We have a webinar, and I want you all to sign up for it. It's on February 18th, and it's through the Women in Insurance initiative of Million Women Mentors STEM Connector. Last year, we did an inaugural data study, and we went out to the industry, the entire industry, and we said, let's ask some questions, let's get some benchmarks, and let's try. We had some people who pioneered with us and said, yes, we'll join you on this data journey. Let's see what we can do. And we are doing our big data reveal on the 18th. So more on that. I appreciate all of you amplifying. And Amy, you already amplified for us, so thank you for that. But I think that the data is going to help. The data is going to guide. But then it's up to us to be actionable and to use and to leverage to get to the solutions. I think that's really my goal for 2020. I want to be all about solutions, all about solutions. I think that's going to help us get to where we want to be. And I love, Josh, when you're talking about equity and justice, this is a part of the journey that is so important for us. As we move beyond just the gender conversation. And we still have to have the gender conversation in all of its forms and fashions, but as we move into a broader, more holistic understanding, justice and equity absolutely have to be a part of what we're talking about every day.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret. Yeah, and I'm going to attend that webinar on February 18th. By the way, I literally just wrote it down on my paper so I don't forget. But no, to your point earlier, and I appreciate that, because for RIMS, I'm just going to do a shout out to this organization here, is that you mentioned moving with intention, and that is a key goal of ours in 2020. I think moving with intention is literally everything. And obviously we need data to support that for sure, but moving intention is a key theme of our Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Council and what we want to do for 2020. And I think for RIMS, we've done a good job in these past few years as we've jumped to the D&I space, is that making good job looking inward and involving senior leadership and the board in our movement and our decisions, mobilizing volunteers, and I mentioned the council that we formed. So I think RIMS has done a really good job in that area, making sure that we're involving people, we're creating a safe space for our members to talk to each other about diversity and inclusion, to be open and and to speak authentically. And I've seen other organizations, and this is from more on an association nonprofit world, such as RIMS and other organizations like Gamma Iota Sigma or GIS, and they do so much for students, particularly for the insurance industry and risk management industry. And they have their, Gamma Said, which is Solutions for Authenticity, Inclusion, and Diversity. And I've had the pleasure of attending their conferences, and you really get to see how diverse the next generation is and how excited those kids are to be involved. And they do a wonderful job to create a safe space for those kids to talk and be open. But you could see them also moving with intention as well. So for moving with intention, I think is something that works particularly well because it just shows that you walk the walk and you're actually doing stuff. So for RIMS, I've seen that work well, and I've seen GIS's D&I efforts work really well because they've really moved with intention as well.
I'd like to bring us full circle for just a moment. I know we've still got some time, but we were talking earlier about what do you do to develop your people, and I've seen one of the trends that I've seen that troubles me is a lot of employers pulling back on their support for organizations like RIMS, like CPCU Society, like CIC, or PIR, all of these designations, and you have employees who want to be out there learning and developing and becoming, more competent professionals with more value to the organization. And yet we see a lot of employers are pulling back on that support. And I would say, employers really need to double down. I mean, now is the time to really invest in these organizations because you're getting great return on your dollar in terms of not just the learning and development for the people that you already have, but now you're getting your company brand in front of people who are already self-motivated, already driven to be the best in their industry, already looking for jobs in the industry, as in the case of Gamma Iota Sigma. And, it's so sad to me to see these companies kind of shooting themselves in their own feet by backing off instead of doubling down.
I like to add to that because I think that is so true, but also for the intersectionality kind of aspect of it, that is great for those who got those. Even though I was labeled as a emerging leader and top talent when I was on the broker side, I didn't feel invested in. There were certain people who went to certain schools, got the training, got in the programs. If you either came in as an experienced professional or didn't go to those certain schools, you weren't in those programs. You're not getting senior leadership exposed to you. And so my call to action, honestly, and it sounds harsh, is if you're someone not feeling invested in, invest in yourself. Only you can do that. There are great organizations. You just heard a list of them. If you have to self-fund yourself to get the skills, exposure, do what you have to do to navigate your career. Now, it's great companies are investing more in these different programs, initiatives, but only you can be happy and excited about your career. So I would say nothing else, figure out what your calling is, then figure out how do you promote your calling on these different platforms, whether it's volunteering in these programs. If you're experienced, mentor someone in GIS. If you're young, go to RIMS to get some knowledge from a leader. Pitch them as a mentor. Invest in yourself. And the thing is, companies are, I would say, like I said, there's a trend right now with diversity. Some people are about that for their life. I would say, monopolize this experience right now and get all the resources you have to do to grow your career so that, we see you all over LinkedIn as a thought leader. Margaret has you on her Rolodex saying, I'm going to hook her up with a job. Tony as well. And it's that you're that name fame when it comes to insurance and risk management. And I say that because when I was leading conferences and doing events, I hardly saw diverse speakers on stage. Part of that, we could be reaching out more, but at the same time, it comes to volunteers. When I was judging industry competitions and awards of senior women within the insurance industry, it wasn't that diverse. But that comes to nominations and recognition as leaders. So I ask people, one, yes, find companies that invest in diversity and inclusion, but you can't expect people to invest in you if you're not investing in yourself first.
Deidre, I love that. And I think that, my takeaway from this is we have to find ways to win at this ground war. It's a ground war. So if we think about, the conferences, the events, that was really where we started with Wing. Wing is open to all men and all women. The events are free, okay? It's free. All you have to invest in is your time. And that group continues to thrive. We need to do more there. Think about, from these Gamma students and Noelle Cotaspati and your team, you're amazing. You're helping our industry, and your students, those students are going to change the world, let alone insurance, but change the world. And that's so exciting. It's exciting to have them at Wing and IICF and at Dive-In. And we had Gamma students running and leading Dive-In this year, which was so cool. And we need to continue to do that. We just have to find ways. All of us find ways. Make sure that we invite and we invite in. I think there's that belonging aspect that I mentioned. Sometimes people are afraid to lean in. They're afraid to take that step. What can I do? What can I do to make it easier for people to have access? And I think that's the big question that we have to answer and we have to do as we go forward. So I love the comments. And one more shout out, Tony. We've got Insurance Careers Month coming up in February. So here we go. And I try to get back to my alma mater, the University of Illinois, every year during Insurance Careers Month. And anybody else that will have me. Last year I was at Drake. And it's so important. And I love being in the classroom. I was at DePaul actuarial science class. And just looking at their eyes, it's energizing to me. I learned so much from them. And I do want to say, Tony, I want to be like you. And I want to be like you, Deidre, and Amy, and Josh. I mean, I learn from you every day. You're my mentors. And thank you for that.
That's so generous, Margaret. Thank you.
I would like to add, I think the common thing, and obviously we love you, Margaret, and I love everybody, and it's not just to pat ourselves on the back, but if you look at what's common with all of us, we all organize people to affect change in our own individual ways. Before we had the titles, we were doing the work. When no one was coming, I remember going to the Wing event in the city. I remember that. I remember seeing Tony on LinkedIn. Amy, I don't even know how I found you. I remember we made these connections. Josh, you were at RIMS doing you were even before you had the diversity, you were doing the work. So I say that because a movement doesn't have to take too much planning. It just has to take the goal and finding people who are willing to do the work to figure it out together. So I think if nothing else, reach out to these people here if you're interested, because they know how to pave the way. But really, I think it's just starting a movement by saying, how can I serve others and how can I connect the dots between organizations and people? And that's the start of all of this.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thanks, Margaret, as well. And, and to Deidre, your point, it really comes down to the RIMS volunteers are absolutely amazing. We have wonderful committee volunteers. We have 80 chapters. And these chapter leaders are incredible, and they do their own D&I programs and initiatives at the local level. And I'm blown away by a lot of the things that they do, and, for anyone listening, if you want to get involved with RIMS, please contact me on LinkedIn, or you can contact me at my email, which is just jlemangan@rims.org. You probably won't remember that because no one remembers my last name, so better on LinkedIn. But the work that the volunteers do is everything, and without them, they're so passionate, and I'm very grateful to our volunteers for the things that they're doing, because I could only do so much to help facilitate things and help drive a direction and passion and set goals, but it's really our volunteers that have done so much. And I'm lucky to have been connected to GIS or Casualty Actuarial Society or Society of Actuaries, and everyone's doing some kind of effort because they realize how important it is. But what's even more interesting to me is that no one's being, I guess, competitive with each other. It's more like this is a group effort, and everyone's driving in the same direction to make sure that they realize that the importance is diversity and inclusion and equity, and it's about that. And so it's been really nice, talking to people via email or over the phone or seeing them at conferences. And so that for me has been a very, positive experience, is seeing how many people really want to work together and partner.
I think there's so much passion in this industry to sustain the industry, right? We know the importance of the insurance industry of risk management, right? And anybody that's ever heard me speak to an insurance audience has heard me say, insurance does two things. It makes all economic investment possible, and we're there for people on their worst day. And if we don't sustain this industry, who's going to do that important work?
Wow. You guys have made this very easy for me. Thank you very, very much. We have 5-6 minutes left if anybody has any final words. Out of the questions that we looked at ahead of time, I'm just curious on what could get on our way. And I don't want to finish on a negative note, but so every organization is making efforts. So the question that I'd like everybody or whoever wants to jump in and add to it is, what could get on our way, and how can we make sure it doesn't?
I'll jump in on this first one. And I just it's going to go back to something that Deidre said earlier, which is, having an approach and measuring your progress. I think doing too much at one time can be much of an issue. So I think measuring what you're doing is very important, to identify areas that need improvement, adjust your strategy accordingly, and make sure you're doing a step-by-step approach. I've seen it where so many things are being focused on at one time that things can kind of go around in circles and circles and circles. And there's so much passion and perspectives and that you want to make sure that you incorporate. But also at the same time, you have to have an approach that's structured. And I think that is really important. And you have to have difficult conversations in order to determine what is the best way to move forward and what could be the most achievable right now in order just to move things along. So I think the thing that can get in our way is maybe doing too much at one time. But also at the same time, I understand that it's important to take in everybody's perspectives, and you want to do that. So, but having a structured approach to me is an important way to move things along.
I think the biggest thing, and Josh, thanks for that. I think you're right. We can't do everything all at once. But I think the biggest thing that gets in people's way is that we want to be comfortable more than we want to affect change. And this is not comfortable work all the time. Growth is never comfortable, right? And so if we have to make our commitment bigger than our fear. We have to make our vision, bigger than our own ego. And so, the bigger we can look at this and the more committed we can be to the long-term success of this industry, the less our own fear matters and the less our own discomfort matters. And we can just keep pushing forward toward this goal of ultimately a sustainable industry.
Those are great answers. I would just add, not getting started. I feel like a lot of people hem and haw get nervous, don't know what to do, how to take the first steps. Just getting started is like what gets in our way. And I guess I have just something to say to those, like I said, underrepresented professionals who are in the industry and like, do I say, do I go? What do I want to do? I would say if you feel that you're underinvested in, overworked, and undervalued, I would love to help you map out a strategy to get to the place where you are a thought leader in our industry and you're seen as the value talent that you are. Just go to djwright.com. I'll help you, but get started and see how you can be a thought leader in our space because we need you so much.
So I'm thinking so many things here because at any given moment, you know, in the day, when I'm reading the LinkedIn posts or I'm talking to people, I have those moments where I'm really, really happy. And then I have moments where I'm really, really sad. And I think those moments are so meaningful to feel everything and to find the balance, because there is a time where I want to say, yay, this is so terrific and I want to be so happy. And then there's times where I want to pull out my hair and say, how can this be happening in 2020? Give me a break. But I want to feel all those emotions, and I want to give myself that moment and that opportunity to live and to feel, to make it normal. It's an authentic feeling. It's a journey that we're on, and on the journey, we're gonna have that moment of victory, and we are gonna have that moment of failure. And it's what you do with each of those that are gonna define where we go next. And I think giving ourselves that human opportunity to feel the high, to feel the low, and to have people prop you up along the way. So I think we do have to do both. I think we have to keep celebrating. So I'm gonna stay courageously positive. But I'm also going to give myself the moment to say, okay, we had the epic fail. Where do we go from here? And how do we learn from it? And that's where I will rely on all of you.
And with that, we're basically out of time. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. It was massively crazy to get the calendars to sync up. I want to get you out in time because I'm sure that you have another meeting coming up. Thank you so much. I will go ahead and link everybody's LinkedIn on the show notes. And if you're listening to this, add all of us on LinkedIn. We're all very active on it. And take Deidre's offer if you're trying to grow your career. And as you learn how to tell your story, we'd love to have it on Insurance Nerds, whether it's on the podcast or on a written form or any of our other many mediums. We'll help get the word out. We don't care about your job title or who you work for. If you have something interesting to say, we want to have it on. So thank you everybody.